Today, we are going to explore some resources, and then at the very end, we're also going to look at some things specifically designed for K through 3 with some decodable text if you're working on phonics lessons. So we're going to try to hit everybody K through 8 today. So before we get started, if you haven't scanned this QR code, if you could do that for me, I would appreciate it. It just gives us a little bit of information about who's in the room and if there's anything else we can help you with. So I will give you just a minute or two to go ahead and use your smartphone to scan that and just complete that survey.
Jen, that link for that form, if you can't scan the QR code, there's a link. I'm going to drop it in again if you didn't see Chris's post. So you can find the form link in the chat box.
And Andrea is going to be my sidekick today. She's going to help me with a Zoom meeting and just monitor the chat for us because it's hard to do both things at a time. So thank you, Andrea. I appreciate that. All right, so just some housekeeping things. I think a lot of us have been using Zoom. We're getting experts at using Zoom these days, but just a couple things if you're not super comfortable with it. You will notice at the bottom of your screen, there is a microphone. So if you are not speaking, I would ask that you just keep that microphone muted and you just click on that and you will see a little red line appear through it. There's also a video camera beside that. If you want to shut your camera off, you can do that. But if you would like to leave it on, I encourage you to do that so we can see who is in the room. Also, all throughout the webinar today, if you have questions, please feel free to post those in the chat. I will be stopping every once in a while to check that chat, and Andrea will keep me on target too if we have any questions. So you will see there is a chat bubble at the bottom of the screen. If it is not visible on your screen, there are 3 little dots. If you click on those little dots, it will bring up your chat. So you have 2 options. You can actually send your chat to everyone, which I would encourage you to do that. Or if you have a friend that's in the webinar and you want to just send them a private message, you can also select just a specific participant that you would send that to. Okay? Any questions before we get started here? All right. Okay, so our learning intentions for today, what do we hope to accomplish? We're going to explore some online text resources that can be used not only now during this virtual learning, but also when learners return to a more traditional school setting. So this is just not something that we can use while we're teaching virtually, but when we get back to brick and mortar, you'll have these resources in your back pocket that you can pull to use with your students. Everything I'm going to show you today is free. There are some things that have extended parts of their websites that are free because of what is happening, but you'll be able to find a lot of resources. Most of them are going to be free and you'll be able to continue to use those. Okay, we talk about even though we're not in a traditional school setting, we need to continue to make sure that our kids are making progress in reading, writing, and critical thinking skills. With these online resources, learners can continue to build stamina, vocabulary, background knowledge, and comprehension each day. So we don't want that to slip. So we talk about that it is critical that kids continue to read each day. So I'm going to put a slide on the next screen, and I think it's kind of eye-opening, the impact of what reading has on kids. So if we take a look here, this shows across the bottom the minutes per day that a child is reading. And then it shows the amount of words that they are exposed to within a school year. So if we look right here, if a child is reading less than 1 minute a day in a whole school year, they're only going to be exposed to 8,000 words. Think about how we learn vocabulary and how we learn background knowledge through what we read. As opposed to 20 minutes a day, look at the 1.8 million words that kids can be exposed to. So this kind of puts it right in front of us, why we have to encourage kids to be reading. And choice is a huge part of what determines if kids want to read, and high interest. So a lot of the things that I'm going to show you today are current events, high interest that'll hopefully spark that interest for kids. And if you look at the side too, it also correlates with the percentiles of where kids fall. So kids that aren't reading as much are falling at lower percentiles, as opposed to those that are reading 20 minutes a day. Look how that increases their percentile rank. So I thought that was kind of a powerful slide just to kick off our session today. Any questions? We doing okay, Andrea? Any questions yet? All right, awesome. All right, so we are going to start with just a little engagement activity. I like to kind of get a sense of how we're feeling in the room. This is adapted from something that you can do face-to-face. You can do this with your kids. You can do this if you're training teachers. So this is a four-corner activity, and I have 4 pictures up here. We have Mission Impossible. We have A Wonderful Life. Whoops. We have Dazed and Confused, and I Think I Can. So if you were thinking right now, which one of these pictures would you relate to with how confident and comfortable you feel with finding text online? Okay, so what I want you to do is, if you don't mind, just put your name and the letter that corresponds to you in the chat. And if you want to tell me why you feel that way, that will be awesome. So I'll give you a couple minutes just to think about that. Where do you fall? And then stick that in the chat for me. I see lots of D's. That's good. Coming with a positive attitude. Excellent. Learning as I go. Where do we get started? Good. Oh, thank you, Andrea. Nice compliment. Excellent. Okay, about 30 more seconds to finish these up. Good news, I didn't see anyone say Mission Impossible, so that's good. That's good. Lots of good attitudes, eager to learn where we can find some good stuff. All right, thank you for doing that. That really helps me to just get a feel of how we're feeling so far during this session. All right. So the next thing that I want to share with you is, this is just a Google Doc that you can access, and you will have access to these slides. This is going to summarize most of the websites that I talk about today. I know it's a lot of information. It's hard to remember everything. So this will be your reference to go back and remember, oh, was that a free site, or was part of it free, or do I have to pay for that? So you can use this after we are finished with the webinar today, just so you can help remember everything we talked about. Okay, I also included this in here because a lot of the websites that we are going to talk about deal with Lexile levels, and those numbers can be kind of confusing if you don't, have them, right at your fingertips. So this is just a resource for you to say, okay, I teach 4th grade. This is around the Lexile level that I want to be looking for. So the way this document has worked, in the first column, obviously, we have the grade level. The second column, we have the Lexile framework of the range of numbers that would fall within that grade level. And then this also has a stretch band, and you will notice that the numbers go a little bit higher. So if you are working instructionally with your kids and you are not asking them to read an independent level, you can actually go a little bit more into that stretch band. So just a caution about Lexile levels. When we look at text with kids, there are lots of different things that we want to look at. This is just the quantitative. It's just the number. So when they are trying to figure out a Lexile level for a piece of text, really they're counting the number of words in a sentence, and they're looking at the number of syllables that are in those words and in those sentences. That's basically how that Lexile level is formed. So we have to remember when we're selecting text for teachers that it's really not taking into account what's the content in there, what's the vocabulary, and what kind of skills they need to know to master that text. So this is a great place to start, but it's not an end all be all in text selection. So always make sure you kind of preview the text and look to see, is there anything in there that might stumble your kids? If you've never talked about foreshadowing, and foreshadowing is part of a piece of text, that might confuse kids if they haven't been exposed to that. So just kind of preview and make sure you're aware of those stumbling blocks that could be presented with kids. Because like I said, this is just measuring the number of words in a sentence and the syllables per words. Okay, any questions? Okay. All right, so we are going to jump into our first resource. The first resource that we are going to talk about today is CommonLit. And with CommonLit, when you come to this site, you are going to need to sign up and you will need to create an account. This is a site that is always free. So if you get into the site and you love this site, you're still going to be able to have all of the features once everything returns back to normal. So in here, you're going to find a collection of fiction. You're going to find informational text, poetry, and original pieces of literacy. So this normally spans from about a 3 to 12th grade level. With CommonLit, you can actually create classes in here and assign articles to students. You can invite them with a code, and it also correlates with Google Classroom, okay? So we're gonna jump in here and take a look at some of the different ways that we can find text. So when we get in here, we're going to go to Browse the Library. If we take a look across the top, like I said, there are many different ways that we are able to search in CommonLit. So we can search on featured content. So these are things that the website pulled out that they think might be high interest to us. So if you scroll down here, we see a lot of things with COVID-19. There's also a Spanish component to this. It has a section for high interest text for high school. There's CommonLit's favorite short stories for middle school, short stories for elementary, favorites from the CommonLit library, some more Spanish texts, science and technology, 3rd and 4th grade reading passages, texts by famous female authors, passages that do not contain short answer questions, most popular texts, themes. One of the nice things about CommonLit is if you were doing a theme of America, you can actually click on America and it will bring up all the different texts that are available here that relates to that theme that you are studying. So that's a really nice feature. Passages for novel studies. These are not the entire novel, but it's pieces pulled out that you can select to use, and text sets, and then recently added text. Okay, so this is kind of a look at a glance if you're just sort of trying to cruise through to get some ideas. If we want to also, we can look at all of the different texts, and this is where we're going to be able to narrow it down a little bit closer to exactly what we were doing with our curriculum. So if you look down here, you can search by grade level. So let's say that I am a 7th grade teacher, and I want to take a look at some of the devices that I've been working on. So maybe I have been working on point of view. So I can go over here and I can select point of view. And it's going to give me 2 pages of text that are appropriate for 7th to 8th grade that's going to focus in on that skill that I want to work on. So when you get here, you will notice if you hover over, it's going to give you a little description of what the text is about. It talks about, is it a poem? Is it a short story? And the grade level that it's going to work with. So let's say that I want to select the medicine bag. So I can select this piece of text. In here, you're going to see a lot of supports for students. So the first thing that you can do is you can either assign this text or you can download it. You can save it. Maybe you're searching and you're trying to find all your favorites, so you can add this to your favorite place. You can even put this text in an email and email it to someone. Again, it gives you the grade level and it gives you the Lexile. This is a nice feature too. You can change the font size. So if that's pretty small and you want to make it a little bit larger, you can absolutely adapt the size of the text, which is a really nice feature. Okay. In the beginning of every one of the articles, there's going to be a short description to tell you what that article is. And then you'll notice what's in bold. It's going to give the kids something to focus on. As you read, take notes on how the narrator, Martin, feels about Grandpa. So it kind of narrows them into what should we be thinking about? What is a focus that we can have? There's also a read aloud component. So if you have a student that's struggling with reading, but you want them to be exposed to this content, you can enable this.
Driving Hawksmead is a member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe and writes children's books that focus on the experiences of Native Americans.
So the story can be read aloud to the kids. A really nice feature, especially with all this text-dependent work that we are doing, there is a highlighting tool. So you can teach kids to highlight a piece or go over and highlight the piece of text, and then that text can be highlighted. Also, they can actually write notes in here. So if we highlight on this, let's see here, whoops. We can highlight, and then if we go to the text feature, they can actually write some notes and annotate the text. So that is a very nice feature of that. Okay. If we come over here, there are also guiding questions, and you can set this to a guided reading mode. So maybe you have learners that like to rush through and they're not really focusing on their comprehension. You can set it that it is in this guided reading mode, and they will come read a section, and then they will come to this question. And it's going to ask them a question about what they just read, and you can set it that they cannot move on until they correctly answer that question. And you can decide if you want to do that or not, but that's kind of a nice feature to slow some kids down that just are reading and not really thinking about comprehension. There's also assessment questions, and what's nice about this is each assessment question is linked to a standard. So you can see exactly what standards are being addressed in those questions. And then finally, there are discussion questions. So these are more where the students are going to be asked to write rather than just select from multiple choice. Okay.
Jen, while you're pausing there a quick second, there was some discussion in the chat about the differentiating feature that Newsela, you can change a Lexile level, but it doesn't look like you can do that with CommonLit. Is there any other differentiating factors?
This is probably one of the only sites that I'm going to show you that you cannot change the Lexile level. So yes, that's a great question. Okay. Any other questions around CommonLit? All right, perfect. All right, so that takes us to our next one, which is Newsela. And for Newsela, if you come to this website, you're going to need to join. It is free access until the end of the year. So normally with Newsela, there's two levels. There's a paid subscription, which is a pro, and there is also a free version, okay? But right now, everything is free till the end of the year. This provides very engaging, high-interest text for kids, mostly nonfiction. These actually come from newspapers and news articles that the Newsela staff rewrite, and like you mentioned before, put them at different Lexile levels for kids to access. So here again, you can create a class. Students can join with a code, or this can be assigned to a Google Classroom. Also, this site is also standards aligned. So let's go ahead and get in here and explore this site. Probably the best feature about this is that Lexile level range, because if I have a group of students, especially in a science or social studies class, where I want them to read about a specific topic, but I have certain kids that are having trouble accessing the text at that level, I can change that Lexile level. They're still going to get the same information, but the text is just made a little bit easier. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. So here, the way this is organized, you can see they have latest news. highlighting some articles for you. There's also science, social studies, and ELA articles in this site. So here are some editors' picks with science, some social studies articles, ELA picks, featured text sets. So sometimes we want to compare and contrast text. So to create a text set is a great idea to be able to do that with kids. Again, some Spanish resources. Okay, so let's actually dive into one of the pieces of text. So let's go ahead and look at this piece of text. So when you get here, if you look down here, it's going to tell you some information about the piece of text. So it tells you when it was first published. So this is really new. 423 is when this first appeared. Word count of 478. It tells you what it's recommended for. And the way it is written right now, it is at an 8th grade text level. If you go up to this button that says Max, here's where you can change the Lexile level. So let's say this is too hard for some of my students. I'm going to go to a 580. Now, same information, but I've taken that to a 3rd grade level. So they're going to get the same kind of information, but it's going to be much easier for them to access. Okay, so varying levels that you can do there. You can do a 950, and you can see how that changes the text. So now it's a 6th grade level. Okay. All right, up here you can present this on a smartboard, or I believe you can even do this in a Zoom using the whiteboard. You can save this article, you can share it, you can add it to a text set, and you can print it. If we go over here to the activities, you'll notice that every time there's going to be a writing prompt. So this one says, choose a problem and solution described in the text. Explain what the problem is and why it matters using examples, facts, and details from the text. So we're getting that text base there. If possible, describe any solutions proposed in the text. So you have 2 choices. You can leave the prompt the way it is, or you can edit it and you can create your own writing prompt for your students to use. So that is a nice feature with that also. Also in the activity section here, there's always a quiz that the students can take just so you can see how their comprehension is. Okay, so if we scroll down here, you're also going to see that they usually include related articles. So an article, if you want to, create a text set or have kids continue to read on that same topic, there's also suggested articles for you there. Okay. Another resource that's added, if you go up to Educator Center, whoops. What they provided here are a lot of webinars to help you transition into distant learning and how to use this website more effectively. So lots of resources here that you can check out and further explore this. We're limited with our time today. I only have an hour to share all of this with you. So if you go and you're exploring some of these things, I do have office hours twice a week that I would be happy to, dive deeper into any of these websites with you.
Let me ask you again here while you pause a little bit. Is there a specific grade range for Newsela?
Yes, Newsela would be probably 3rd through 8th. That would fall. Okay, excellent. All right, our next website is Tween Tribune, and this comes from the Smithsonian. With this, again, you need to sign in and create an account. It is completely free and it is always free. So this also provides daily current event articles. You can create classrooms in here and you can also use it with Google Classroom. The nice thing with this is it dips down into the primary. So here we actually have K through 12. Now the 9 through 12 resources are not as rich. They're still working on building that, but there's still absolutely materials that you can use. Okay, so let's go into this site. All right, so this one doesn't have quite as many bells and whistles as some of the other ones, but it's still a really good resource to use. So if we take a look here, there's a couple different ways that we can search. You can search by grade level band. So this would be K through 4, and it would bring up all the articles that are falling in a K through 4. Again, this one also has that ability to change the Lexile levels. So if you're searching in a K through 4, and you find something that maybe you would like to use with older students, you have the ability to do that by switching that Lexile level again. Okay, if you go over to the side, you can also search by topic. So let's say I'm doing a unit on animals. This is going to bring up all of the articles that has the topic of animals in here. So if we click on here, again, you can see you can assign this to a classroom. There's also a quiz that's going to be accompanied with it. You can switch the Lexile level. So right now, is it a 660? You can continue to make that harder if you would like to use that with more advanced readers. If you scroll down with each one of these articles, there is usually a little video that accompanies it that corresponds to what is happening in the article. You can also, on this side, right below where we search by topic, you can also search by Lexile level. So if you want to search by Lexile, that is another option that you can do. Okay, it has a quiz. So these are multiple choice questions for the quiz that the students can answer just to check their comprehension. And then this has kind of a neat feature. It is asking you, this is kind of like writing a review. So it's called critical thinking question. And it's going to say, what's one reason that flamingos stand on one leg? So the kids are going to take what they learned in the article and they're going to respond to that question. But if you think about this, this would be an awesome place to think about when we're looking for evidence. So if you're trying to evaluate good evidence and bad evidence, which we do all the time when we're talking about text-dependent analysis, you could have your kids look through these responses and talk about which one of these responses were really solid, which were good, and maybe which ones were weaker and why, all based on the evidence. So lots of different things that we can do with this website. Like I said, not as many bells and whistles as the other one, but definitely some good resources. And again, across the top, you can search by grade level. Also, if you go over to teacher, this takes you to a lesson planning page where there are lesson plans and you can dig a little bit deeper. And then down at the bottom, there's something called Monday Morning Ready. So these are an article with lesson plans that can get you started for the week. Okay, it has discussion questions based on your grade level, and a whole lesson plan here just to help you design your instruction. Okay. Any questions on Tween Tribune?
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, keep going here. Okay, the next one that we are going to take a look at is ReadWorks. ReadWorks is also a free resource. You will need to create an account. It contains fiction, nonfiction, poetry, lots of supports here to help kids. In this site, you can also create a class and assign, or you can use Google Classroom. It's also a great website to differentiate, because if you have one student or a group of students, you can assign different articles to them. So if I'm differentiating, I don't have to give all of my kids that same article to read. Okay, so when we go in here, I'm going to find my content. If we look down just the center of this first, we can explore by topic. So if we're looking for a specific topic, you can absolutely explore by topic. Then there are reading passages, and we will explore this a little bit more when we get into those reading passages. But with the reading passages, they are all going to provide question sets to go along with the article, vocabulary support. So they're going to pick out some tier 2 and tier 3 vocabulary to go along with that article. They can be read to. There's also something called a steps read. So if the article that you chose is a little bit too difficult, you can have another article that is similar that's going to kind of boost them to get them ready for that reading. Vocabulary activities, and these articles can also turn into ebooks. Okay, if we continue to scroll down, we have some featured passages. This is also called an article of the day, and we're going to watch this. It's just a 1-minute video. But what article of the day is this is designed to build stamina, to build vocabulary knowledge, and comprehension. Okay, so let's just watch this little 1-minute video.
As teachers, we all want our students to succeed in reading comprehension and to love reading. But so many of our kids just don't have the background knowledge, vocabulary, or stamina they need to be successful. Article a day can make a huge difference by systematically building our students' background knowledge, academic vocabulary, and reading stamina. The best part? It can fit into your busy day. It's a 10-minute routine that barely requires any prep time and works for all your students, struggling readers and English language learners included.
Today's story is called, What is a Desert? Does anyone know anything about a desert?
All you need to do is find 10 minutes during your day that you can use for the routine. We find transition time works really well. Then, print or digitally assign a weekly set of nonfiction articles already curated by ReadWorks that will engage your students in a wide range of topics.
Who read the article titled Learn About Math?
Then you're ready to implement the super simple research-based classroom routine where students read, write, and share orally. Your students will love learning new things through reading, and you'll love watching your students' knowledge and vocabulary grow in their books of knowledge and in your class book of knowledge. Start the free routine today.
Okay. So definitely something that you could try to implement now, but something that I would definitely remember when you get back to your regular classrooms, just a quick Fluency Billow comprehension vocabulary enrichment idea. Okay, and then there's featured article sets and some paired text. So let's go ahead and go back up and look to see how we can search. So when we're searching this, again, we are going to search by grade level. So let's say that I am a 5th grade teacher and I want to search ELA. What's really nice here is I can search by skills and strategies. So if I am working on cause and effect, I can click on cause and effect and find an article that's going to lend itself to teaching some cause and effect. So if I go up to here, along the side, it's going to give you some information. It's going to tell you the grade level, the word count, the Lexile, the important vocabulary that's in the article, and your standards. So what standards are we addressing in this particular article? Also, there's going to be related articles. So if this is a theme, you can also include some of these articles. Okay, if we look at the top, this site also has the ability to have the story read to the students. So that is at the top. This is the vocabulary page that I was talking about. These are the vocabulary words that will be addressed. And then some ideas of how to teach those vocabulary words. And then we have question sets. So how are we working at the comprehension from this article? Okay. So I really like that. I like searching by the skill. Because that can be hard to find text that matches the skills that we are teaching. And you can see all of those different skills that are in there. Something else I wanted to show you is the featured partners. If you are a teacher in grades 3 through 8, you probably have done a lot of work with text-dependent analysis. I know some of you have come to some of my trainings, and we talk a lot about evidence. And we talk about finding good evidence, finding explicit evidence, finding implicit evidence. So here, I think this is a great resource. This comes from the Philadelphia Museum of Art. These are pieces of art that we could use to talk about explicit evidence and implicit evidence and making inferences, because I know when I work with teachers, where can I find these pictures? Where can I find these pieces of art that lends themselves to good conversations around explicit evidence and implicit evidence to help kids make inferences. So this, I think, is an awesome resource to have kids talk about that. And then what's nice is it gives you a description of what that painting is about. So I thought that was a great find. I just recently saw that and wanted to make sure that I pointed that out to you. You also see here, there's boost articles, and these are the articles that are just a little bit simpler if kids are struggling with the article that's presented. And there's also challenge articles. So if we want to make it a little bit more difficult or more challenging for some of our kids. Okay, like I said, we can sort by grade level is a great place to start. And then that's skills, nonfiction, fiction, and you can even do Lexile levels if you would like. Questions on that? Okay. Okay, so we're going to move a little bit away from text for a minute, and we're going to take a look at this resource. This is called Storyline Online. This is just a fun resource for teachers. When we think about oral language, we really need to be fostering that oral language in kids. That is how they learn vocabulary. That is how they gain background knowledge. Research tells us that kids should be read to every single day up till 8th grade. So a lot of times we think that's just a primary thing. It really isn't. Up until 8th grade, they can have vocabulary gains by being read to. So this is a fun site. I remember this site was around when I was teaching in the classroom, but it was not nearly as big as it is now. So if you find, whoops, let's get to the site first. If you find a story that you like, this just reads to the kids. So we're going to select Harry and the Dirty Dog. And this is actually going to be read to us by Betty White. So I'm just going to put this on so you can hear it.
Welcome to Storyline Online, brought to you by the Screen Actors Guild Foundation. I'm Betty White, and I think we're going to have a good time today. At least I know I am, because I'm going to be reading you a book, okay? I love animals, all animals, but maybe dogs in particular. So today, I'm going to be reading you a story about Harry the Dirty Dog. It's by Jean Zion, pictures by Margaret Bloy Graham. Harry was a white dog with black spots who liked everything except getting a bath. So one day when he heard the water running in the tub, he took the scrubbing brush and buried it in the backyard.
Okay, just so you have an idea of what this is. So this really just a fun resource. You can even share this with families and they can pull it up. When you're back in your classroom, you can put these up on your Promethean board and project the book for everyone to see. So questions on this website? Okay. All right, the next one we're going to do, this is going to be these next two sites more of a K-3 focus. This is a really nice website that is free right now till the end of the school year. This is called Flyleaf Online Portal. And this is a collection of decodable text. So if you teach K-3, you know that we teach these phonics lessons, and to be super effective, we want to make sure that we have a piece of text that practices those phonics skills. So the first resource here, which is really nice because I know a lot of districts ask me for scope and sequence. This is their scope and sequence of phonics skills. Not only is it their scope and sequence, but it matches and shows you which book is going to address that specific skill that is being taught. So this is really important for those primary grades. When we're teaching kids to read, we want them to be successful, and we want to make sure we've explicitly taught those skills and then practice those skills in a piece of text. So if you enter as an instructor, it's going to go through the whole scope and sequence. So obviously it's going to start out with the most simplest books. These are all closed syllables. And if you click on the book, you can pull the book up and the kids can practice reading those specific skills that were addressed. What else is here is there are worksheets, and I am not a big proponent of worksheets, But in primary grades, it's really important that kids have explicit practice with handwriting instruction and maybe drawing pictures and matching connections with those letters and sounds. So that's basically what this is. So like I said, not a big person I would ever say use worksheets, but this has a purpose. So these are very, very purposeful. And as you scan down, I mean, there are just many, many, many books here. Each pattern gets a little bit more difficult. Multisyllabic words, we're moving with words with endings. So down here, what they're doing is they're taking a lot of the skills that you've learned in the previous lessons and consolidating it. So these books look more like regular books, but they're very decodable. All the books in here are between 96 and 99% decodable. So this is really good for those kids that are struggling and really need that explicit phonics instruction. Okay. If you enter as a student, you're going to see the exact same thing. It's not going to have the smart board. It's just going to have the book there that they can get in and read. Any questions on that one?
Not on that one, Jen, but backing up to Storyline Online, is there a grade range for that specifically, or is that just kind of search as you please?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you click, it will actually tell you in here. So when you see this right here, suggested grade levels, 1st through 3rd. Okay. And remember, these are being read orally. So if I wanted to read Stripes to a kindergarten student, it's okay because we can read to them at a higher level because their oral vocabulary is going to be better than if they were reading it on their own.
Yeah, that's a good point. Does that go, are there like novels involved in that, or are those
No.
mostly storybooks?
These are mostly just picture book storybooks. Yeah. Okay, great questions. All right, last site that we are going to do today. This is another site for decodable books, and this site is always going to be free. So you'll be able to access these even next year. So this is the website right here if you spelled SA phonics books, but the links are in here for you to go to. This one isn't quite as fancy as the last one, but there's some good features here. So if we look here, there are 20 different sets of decodable books, but within each one of those sets, there are multiple books. So if you look here, it tells you the sounds and letters that have been taught, and then it allows the kids to practice those sounds and letters within a book. So you'll see there's a variety of different ways to open the books. What's kind of nice here is they also have fluency charts. So we want to build that word level fluency sometimes before we put kids in text. So this can be a practice. We want to make sure that they are accurate first. Once kids are accurate, then we can start practicing fluency. But these are words that are going to be presented in that book that they're asked to read. So this is a good starting point. We start with the words, we get accurate with the words, we build fluency with the words, then we can jump into those pieces of text. Oops. And this goes, I believe there are 20 different sets. And this is a work in progress. If you're up at the upper levels, you'll see that it might say that these books are still currently being written and illustrated. So if you get some of the more complex patterns, they may not be available yet, but keep checking back because they are coming. But it's really nice, like if you teach phonics, you know how hard it is to find text that corresponds to, especially a book. Like sometimes we can find passages, but to find full books that have that specific phonics skill is hard to do. And this is a free site, so I would definitely bookmark this if you're a primary teacher for next year. Any questions?
I think everybody's loving the resources. Jen, you got
Awesome.
there. A question though, going back to Flyleaf and maybe perhaps also this decodable source for spelled essay.
Yes.
Do they link into or integrate with Google Classroom, do you know?
Oh, I don't know that. Let me look here. Let's go to instructor and open one of those books and see. I mean, it says Smartboard, but I don't know. I mean, the students, so if we go to the student part, so if the students log in, this is what the students would see. So I don't know. Any tech people on have any insight on that?
Jen, I just put in the comment, it probably links over okay, but I don't know that it really would like integrate officially is my guess. I don't know.
Okay. But if you would give kids access to this website, they could go in and find the story that you're assigning to them. So maybe not as techy as some of our other sites, but definitely access through the website. Thanks, Brenda. Anything else? Any other questions?
Making sure that I was right when I heard you say that Flyleaf was free for now.
Yes, free till the end of the school year. That is correct. And if anyone's interested, I can see, you know, what the charge is, like when they do charge, you know, what their fees are. I don't know that off the top of my head, but I can definitely look into that. Anyone else? Okay, if there's no other questions, I want to do a ticket out the door because I want to get some feedback. So this is just like the code that you would have used your phone for in the beginning. And there is also a link up here that you can use. I just want to know, thinking about all the resources that we talked about today, because we talked about a ton of stuff. I gave you a lot of information. Think about one, is there one that you really want to dive into and explore more? Or is there one that you think you're going to try to use in your classroom? And does everyone, can I click on this? Did everyone get this code? When you take this, it should take you to a Padlet using either one of these. Give you just a second to make sure you have that. Okay, so when you click on that, this is what should come up. So if you click on this plus button, it allows you to write a comment. If you get really brave, you can record yourself doing a comment. But just thinking about all the resources that we did today, which would you like to further explore or try using? Did you have a favorite? If you would like me to help explore those further with you, like I said, I have office hours on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'd be more than happy to help you do that. So if you wouldn't mind just leaving a little bit of feedback here about what you liked.
Jen, if you want to go back to the link, we can probably copy the link and put it in the chat. It might be, might help.
Okay. Thanks, Brenda. Oops.
Okay, I said that, but I don't have a QR device in my hand.
Oh, yes.
And I can't copy and paste off your slide deck. So yeah, we'll get to it.
Andrew, are you putting that in the chat?
I don't have your link. Oh, there it is. Chris got it.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
While people are accessing that link there too, we had a couple more questions roll in. Is there any way to purchase an individual subscription to Newsela Pro? Or is that just like a district-wide?
I don't know, but I'll find out.
And then a question to differentiate pictures from ReadWorks versus New York Times, I'm assuming, NYT.
Yeah.
Would ReadWorks have better pictures than the NYT?
I think either one would be fine. I really like the ones that were the art pictures that were, you know, those additional resources from the museum. I just thought they would have a lot of discussion. Either ones you can do, and it depends on your grade level too.
And then for the decodables, are they printable? I think I did see the print option.
Yes, they are printable. Yes, they are. That, and especially that second one, there's a lot of different options. You can put them to like an iPad, you can print them. So yeah, check those out because there are different options for that.
Yeah, and I saw, you know, there's a lot of capability too. If anybody's doing anything synchronously on Zoom, those worksheets would be great, you know, to annotate, have your students annotate.
Right.
There's a lot of great options on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting a
And
lot.
just to make sure everyone's clear, Newsela, even the Pro is free till the end of the year. It won't make that change until the paid would be next year. But I'll check in and see what that would be. And if that person even wants to shoot me an email, then I can get back to them. Am I good to switch this slide? Is everyone good here? Okay, there is my email. So if anyone wants to follow up with anything, shoot me an email about asking for the cost of Newsela Pro so I can make sure I get the information to the right person. Anything else?
Also, again, just to let you know that you can find these slides and the recording of today. So if there's something that you're like, oh yeah, she said that, but I can't remember, you can always come back to the link that Chris has there in the chat box, the myextendedcampus.com/resources, and you will find the recording and the link to the slides that has all of the active links within Jen's presentation. So that is a great resource to have. And it seems as though everybody's getting a lot of good stuff. So again, you know, Jen has those office hours and she'd be more than happy to help you troubleshoot or get some things integrated or linked over as we're working remotely now. But let us know if you have any other questions here.
Yep. And there are the links right there for the slides, and that's everyone's office hours. So if you want to see I'm Monday at 9 and Wednesday at 1, you can sign up for office hours and get our Zoom room links right there. So, all right. Well, thank you, everyone. It was a great first webinar. I hope you had lots of information. And like I said, don't hesitate to contact me.